Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Midwest City Council meeting, the July 24th version. Welcome and glad that you're here. I do call this meeting to order, and I want to invite Vaughn Sullivan down to lead us in the invocation, and Councilwoman Allen will lead us in the pledge. Please stand.
Would you bow with me, please? Almighty Heavenly Father, Creator and Sustainer of life, we give you glory and honor for this occasion, for this beautiful day that we've enjoyed, Lord. And Father, I just thank you so much for this occasion and the men and women who serve on this council. Father, thank you for their service. We ask a prayer of wisdom, discernment be upon them tonight. And Father, we just ask that you'd give them peace about their decisions as well, Lord. Father, we just thank you so much for this beautiful city that we enjoy and state and this great nation, Father. Father, we thank you for men and women who are willing to sacrifice and defend our freedoms. And Father, I ask that you protect them. You give them peace and their families as well while they're away. Father, we just thank you so much for them and what they're willing to do. Thank you ultimately, Father, for the greatest example of service that has ever been on this earth, and that's your Son, Jesus. Thank you for the blood that was shed on our behalf. It's in his holy name I ask these favors. Amen.
Pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, are there any community-related announcements around the horseshoe? We got anything going on? I will. Go ahead.
Sorry. I wanted to mention we have coming up the first Friday of August, which is August 3rd, another Summerfest at Charles Johnson Park from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. There'll be free music entertainment and movie, and so Vaughn is telling me he can't hear me. So let me try that one more time.
Okay.
Sorry. Is that better? Okay, sorry. Friday, August 3rd, there is another Midwest City Summerfest in Charles Johnson Park. They're in Town Center from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. There'll be free music and then a movie that evening. There'll also be food trucks out there. You're all invited and encouraged to come out and bring your families, bring some lawn chairs, bring a blanket, sit out and enjoy. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Just for your own information, we are hosting a security summit tomorrow at 9 o'clock at the Charles Johnson building. What we've done is called all the local law enforcement, fire, and other agencies together to review our plans in case of an active shooter or an event, and make sure that our plans are in place and that we're all on the same page. So that'll be going on from 9 till 11 tomorrow at Charles Johnson Center. Any more? Well, we've got a special presentation that we're going to do today, and so let me go down front. How many of y'all lived in Midwest City 25 plus years? Raise show of hands. Everybody know where Reno and Air Depot is, right? Everybody know? Well, there's a service station on the corner of that intersection called Becker's. Have y'all ever gone into Becker's? He's been there for 50 years. And this is his family here with us. Now, how many of y'all have actually worked at that station? Please stand. Oh, you got to stand. So how about that? Mr. Becker, come up. Now, when I was a kid, my mom used to take her car up there to be serviced. I need to come by to make sure that we still don't owe you money.
Thank you.
Well, it's an event to be recognized that a business stays in a community this long and has sustained themselves this long. And I know for a fact that you've given gas to people, you've fixed their cars for no or little charge. That's the kind of giving spirit that we're losing nowadays, but you continue on, and thank you for that.
Well, I try my best to satisfy everybody.
Well, you do a good job, Mr. Becker. So that being said, I can't do a lot as mayor, but I'm going to give you a day. This is going to be your day, okay?
Thank you.
Whereas the year 2018 marks the 50th year of business for Mr. Bud Becker, owner of Becker's Auto Service located at Reno and Air Depot in Midwest City. Whereas at 81, his family admires his tenacity, his caring for the elderly, and driving to his shop in Midwest City from Wellston every day and taking care of his farmland and his cattle, where he's known to haul hay until sundown. There's not too many kids nowadays that know what hauling hay is, do they? Whereas Bud's passion is customer service, and he loves to tell jokes and make his customers laugh. And he has customers that have been with him since he opened his doors. And some have even said that they will quit driving the day he closes his doors. Whereas his dedication and hard work ethic mark him as a kind-hearted man of character, going above and beyond for his customers, as he would go to their homes to jump their cars, air up their tires, enough to get them to the station to get them fixed, or take them home or to work when they drop their car off to have work done, or even tell those that didn't have a lot of money to get it to him when they could, or fix their tires for free. So therefore, I, Matthew Dukes, Mayor of Midwest City, do hereby proclaim July 24th as Bud Becker Day in Midwest City.
Thank you. This little girl right now here, I'm really hard. She's been in my station ever since she was a baby.
Kelly, he says he's known you since you were a baby. Congratulations and thanks for being
Thank
here,
you.
Mr.
I
Becker.
appreciate that.
Thank you, Becker family, for being here.
This in here still works for me. I don't know where it still works for me.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, Jeff,
Everybody.
what's the chance of you getting a picture of the entire Becker family standing outside? When's the next time they're going to have the entire Becker family together? And so you have a professional photographer. You got a professional photographer and newsman. If he can take a picture, that would be awesome with his camera.
Thank you.
And I think all of y'all are invited to Pelicans and Rogers buying.
Come on, Tom. You're part of the family.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we'll move into our consent agenda. These items are placed on consent agenda so that the council by unanimous consent can approve routine agenda items by one motion. If any one item proposed does not meet with the approval of all council or members of the audience who wish to discuss an item, will be removed in regular order.
Mayor, I ask the item number 10 and number 18 be pulled.
City Clerk, item 10 and 18 will be pulled. Items 10 and 18 will be pulled. Other than that, Chair would entertain a motion.
Motion to accept the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries.
Item C10 is discussion consideration of renewing the jail services agreement for fiscal year 2018-2019 with the town of Forest Park to provide labor and jail facilities to retain all prisoners who are placed into a confinement status by law enforcement officials at a rate of $60 per day, plus a $30 booking fee that will be applied to the daily compensation charges if the inmate is held longer than 11 hours.
Mr. Mayor, last year we dealt with a couple of outside contracts with municipalities that our police department dealt with with canines or dogs. And I want to make a recommendation, and I think that we would be not doing our due diligence if we didn't do the exact same thing with this contract that we did with the animal control, and that's ask for a cost analysis to assure that the contract price is close to being equal to the cost of what it costs the city of Midwest City to house these prisoners from an outside jurisdiction, to make sure that the citizens of Midwest City aren't paying for the housing of these prisoners. And I don't have a problem with the contract. I just think that we need to, moving forward, make sure that we're getting adequately compensated for performing this service.
Ms. City Attorney, is there going to be an issue of pulling this and bringing it back in 30 days?
I'm not necessarily asking to do it right now. I think because we approved one last month.
Yes, sir.
I think I'll make a motion to approve it with the understanding that going forward, when these contracts like this come up, that we make sure that, and I don't know how long it's been since we've reviewed this contract or done a cost analysis to make sure that it's
I understand.
equal to or better, or equal to, that we're not overly bearing a burden.
Pat,
Some-
did you not also have a concern about our officers?
Well, I think that we need to look at, if we're tying up, if there's an opportunity or a situation arises where our officers, we're having to take them out of service to go to the hospital and basically sit on a prisoner from another agency until they can get there. If it's, I think we need to look at that contract to make sure that we're not guarding them or responsible for them by pulling officers off the street to guard the prisoners of other jurisdictions.
So your motion would be to go ahead and approve the contract, subject to review before renewal next year?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's my motion.
I have a motion. And I have a second. Or any further discussion on this item? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Next item.
This would be discussion consideration of reappointing Eddie Reed to the Midwest City Urban Renewal Authority for an additional 3-year term to end on July 27, 2021.
Make a motion to approve.
I have a motion. Did I hear a second?
We need probably roll call for this, Matt.
Sure, let's go ahead and do a roll call vote.
Ward 1,
Yes.
2,
Yes.
3, 5.
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes. Motion carries. Thanks for stepping down, Mr. Reed.
You just wish it was permanent.
The first discussion item is PC 1953, public hearing with discussion consideration of approval of an ordinance to redistrict from RMH2 Manufactured Home Park District to a planned unit development governed by the RMD Medium Density Residential District, and a resolution to amend the comprehensive plan from RH Manufactured Home to MDR Medium Density Residential for the property described as a tract of land lying in the northwest quarter of Section 25, Township 12 North, Range 2 West, located at 2222 North Douglas Boulevard. This item was tabled at the June 26, 2018 council meeting. Mr. Harless?
I'm under the understanding that the applicant on this requests that it be pulled and be brought back to Planning Commission. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Chair would entertain a motion to reflect that.
Motion to so reflect.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Next item.
Yes,
This
Mr.
is
Ma-
P.
Mr. Mayor, I don't know if you were going to go ahead and move the ODOT item up.
No, sir, we're going to continue on.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Thank
I
you.
didn't-
That's all right.
So next item is PC 1957, public hearing with discussion consideration of approval of the replat of a part of Lot 1, Block 5 of the Harper Addition, described as a part of the northwest quarter of Section 31, Township 12 North, Range 1 West, and addressed as 10306 Northeast 7th Street. Mr. Harless?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Henson. This is a application for a replat of Lot 1. The lot is approximately 1 acre in size, divided into 3 lots. Meets all the requirements. Planning Commission and staff recommend approval. Mr. Kelso will be representing Jeff Moore in case there's any questions on the subject.
Is the applicant in the audience? How you doing, Mr. Kelso?
I'm doing good.
Could you state your name and address?
My
for
name
the
is
record?
Doyle Kelso. I live at 10120 Northeast 4th, Midwest City.
Do you have anything to add to this item?
Not really at this time.
Does anyone have any questions of Mr. Kelso? If not, Chair would entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Thanks for being here, Mr. Kelso.
Might as well just stay there, Doyle. Next
The next
item
one's
is
yours.
PC 1958, discussion consideration of approval of the proposed preliminary plat of Kelso Place, described as a part of the southwest quarter of Section 31, Township 12 North, Range 1 West, addressed at 10112 Northeast 4th Street. Mr. Harless?
Yes, this is a 1.57 acre property off of Post and 4th. Since the property was just a lot previously, Mr. Kelso has to go through the preliminary plat and final plat process in order to get all the easements and rights of way. Planning Commission and staff recommend approval on this.
You have anything to add, Mr. Kelso?
No, sure don't.
Any questions? Any further discussion? Chair would entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Next item.
PC 1959, public hearing with discussion consideration of approval of a ordinance redistricting from R6 single-family detached residential and R2 F two-family attached residential to a planned unit development governed by the R6 single-family detached residential district for the property described as a part of the northeast quarter of Section 1, Township 11 North, Range 1 West, located in the 400 block of South Post Road. Mr. Harless?
Yes, sir. To refresh the council's memory, many may remember that this item was heard in the fall and rejected the request for the rezoning to a PUD due to concerns about drainage in the area. Since that time, the consulting engineer has hired an additional drainage engineer to help with the design on this, and then also the city is besides the city engineer, has hired a consulting engineer to take an additional look at this item for drainage. What's different about this application from the previous one is that it's gone from 8 lots to 7 lots to help with the density. And also, this is going from R2F and R6, which this rezoning will help reduce the density, which will decrease the amount of runoff into the area. This is a rezoning. As the item moves forward, should you pass this, as the item moves forward, you'll get 2 more chances to look at this to reevaluate the engineering calculations. And so our consultant engineer and city staff will look at that with those changes. And since this is going to a lower density, Planning Commission and staff recommend approval.
I have a question.
Okay.
So Patrick, with regard to the consulting engineer, you retain the consulting engineer, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And the consulting engineer approves of this proposal? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, be reminded that this is right now just a proposal. Not a lot of detail has been put into the design yet, but with all of the different parties looking at it preliminarily, it looks like that it will function, and the plat will move forward as it needs to.
Okay, and just so I'm clear, you know how much we've been dealing with water issues over the past month. I mean, we've had numerous conversations over, we call it the sins of others. And we're gonna see this twice more, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
In those 2 other times that we're gonna see it, there's gonna be somebody from community development out there monitoring this to make sure that we're not approving something and we're getting what they're telling us that they're putting in, that it's correct and it's gonna work. And I know we can't control a 100-year flood, but we are spending an awful lot of time on dealing with water issues. People are getting flooded out because whoever, it wasn't done properly.
Yes, sir. And what we can do is, and we take it very seriously as well, as we've met out on many sites to visit some of these. But we will hold the applicant and the engineers in this case to the minimum standards, and to do everything we can as far as the standards are to bring them into compliance. So, and I think that with the number of eyes on this being four different engineers that work with drainage, we'll take every step that we can to make sure that they're into compliance.
And I'm appealing with your guys' wisdom on this, because we repeatedly hear that developers are meeting minimum standards. If we are to the point now where the minimum standards aren't appropriate for today, I'm appealing to you to let us know, because if we need to revisit what the minimum standards are to make sure that in 5 years these people that are down or up from them are coming to us saying, you approved something and we're getting flooded. I'm begging you to please let us know if that is not working. We need to know it so we can make changes.
Well, we would always like to have better drainage standards and requirements, and we will, per the conversation at the last council meeting, be putting together a memo. We're assembling a memo on several ordinances that we would like to see improvements, and be passing that on to the council. So we hear you, and we'll be bringing that to you.
And I would note that with the consultant and with staff, no one wants to have any adverse impact on the adjacent properties, and the developer, I'm sure, does not want to go down that path as well. So all parties are going to be working towards that same goal, and nothing will be brought in front of this horseshoe until there's a consensus between the developer and staff and the consultants that there won't be that adverse impact to the adjacent properties.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing. Anyone in the audience having anything to say about this particular discussion item? Hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the proposal.
Second.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Next item?
This is PC 1960, discussion consideration of approval of the proposed preliminary plat of Windsor Meadows, described as a part of the northeast quarter of Section 1, Township 11 North, Range 2 West, located on the west side of St. Paul Avenue. Mr. Harless?
Yes, sir. This is the proposal for a 38 lot or parcel single-family subdivision, and this is a preliminary plat. So this differs from a zoning in the sense that they have to meet the minimum requirements and not asking for a rezoning of property. In this case, the 38 individual parcels all meet the width and depth requirements for our subdivision regulations. They meet all the other subdivision regulations with the exception of the length of the cul-de-sac. The staff and fire department considered the depth of this, and under the circumstances, since there was not a way to necessarily develop to the west of the property and tie in a street, and then the cul-de-sacs on the north and the south being is it 4th and 6th Street, 4th and 6th Street are on cul-de-sacs. It meets the nature of the surrounding properties. Staff and Planning Commission recommend approval on this.
Mr. Melton, you want to?
Yeah, my name's David Melton. I live at 520 St. Paul Avenue. Councilman Byrne, I sent you an email, and I copied the mayor and the rest of the council on that concerning my concerns with this. And I'll just briefly go over a couple of those. The number of houses it's going to create in this area, I just think is a little bit excessive, along with the amount of traffic that it's also going to create on St. Paul, being a dead-end street that's just going to exit only on Reno. I do know there was a variance issued for the length of the cul-de-sac, but there was never a discussion of it being over 1,000 feet. So that is the main concern, I guess. I would actually think that, you know, I'm not totally against the development, I really am, but, you know, 32 houses, 31, somewhere around there, should be an acceptable number. Like I said, during the Planning Commission meeting, I do know that there was a variance issued, but I don't recall anything going over 1,000 feet. So, and 1,000 feet is what is in the R6 code.
Mr. Harless, you want to address those issues?
Well, I don't have the minutes from the meeting in front of me, but I do remember the talking about the variance of over 1,000 feet and it requiring, was it 5/7 of the vote of the commission in order to approve that, and the commission received a memo prior to that in order to meet that standard. I'm not sure about why he's not familiar with the over 1,000 feet on that, because it was discussed at the Planning Commission meeting.
Well, whenever I discussed it with somebody else who was here, and they did not recall that either. So maybe it was just rushed over. And reading through the agenda today at the House, it kind of sounds like, you know, a PUD, I guess it's a rezoning. Is that not correct?
Yes, sir.
So we're pulling that part of the code from a different zoning ordinance to an R6. It doesn't sound quite legal.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that last part too. Pulling it to.
The only reason
Oh,
that
I'm
they
sorry.
can do over 1,000 feet is because of PUD. This isn't zoned a PUD. This is zoned R6. So you just can't pull and pick and choose what you want.
That's what the Planning Commission granted the variance for. We provided the Planning Commission with the memo prior to the meeting stating that a PUD is required for a cul-de-sac exceeding 1,000 feet in length. The Planning Commission approved what was presented by staff.
PUD is a zoning for that area, right? It's a different classification.
Preliminary plat.
So it needs to be rezoned for that, right?
And the planning commission approved the variance to allow them to remain R6 rather than.
But to be able to do the PUD, they're gonna have to rezone it.
Our codes meld together. Our codes, the subdivision regulations reference the zoning.
So you can just
zoning
pull and
ordinance.
pick and choose what you want?
No, sir.
It sounds that way.
Well, I think is what she's saying is that instead of going through a PUD.
And actually, also, whenever I discussed it with Mr. McClendon, he said it has nothing to do with the PUD. And I discussed that with him last Tuesday. Who is the owner of the property?
It's Mr. McClendon, isn't that right, Mr. McClendon? He's the applicant, yes.
Yeah. Because I
don't
was
know- I
asking
don't
him,
know
because I
about the
thought this was all
conversations.
going for a PUD until Tuesday. And whenever I talked to him, he said this has nothing to do with the PUD, but here you're all pulling a street part of the ordinance out of a PUD just to work for an R6.
I don't know that they require, so it's their request for
Absolutely.
the variance. to
And
the
I will
ordinance.
state
But
this real
the-
quick.
the
Hang
code
on a
actually
second, hang on a
states
second.
it's
I'm
500
gonna-
feet.
Give me a second. I'm on your side on this. I hate variances.
Yeah, I mean,
But they have followed the proper procedures. They have a supermajority that needed to be done. I'm probably gonna vote against this. I'm just gonna let you know I hate variances, period, in the sentences. But the staff didn't pick and choose. They followed the procedures that are in place, and because, to make sure that they're not picking and choosing, you have to have a supermajority from the planning commission to do something like this, because it is a major variance that they have done. I've worked as a planning commissioner before I got elected.
I know you very well.
And I understand how it can look like they are picking and choosing. But when something like this comes up, it is not something that's taken lightly, and the 5-7 or the supermajority rule is in place to make sure things are not done willy-nilly.
the R6 zoning says the cul-de-sac cannot exceed 500 feet. And that was what the variance was, well,
But
should be 500 feet and cannot exceed 1,000 feet.
So our planning department is able to, with the planning commission's vote, with the supermajority, have variances to the code the way it is.
That was a variance over 500 feet.
And they've given a variance under the PUD to the 1,000. Look, I'm on your side on this, but they didn't pick and choose. They followed. And again, I know that you disagree. You and I are on the same page, but we're going to disagree on this one. They didn't just willy-nilly pick and choose. They followed the rules. They got a supermajority on this.
You know, I've learned more about this code than I ever thought I would. I've read it night and day, and it feels to me like it's pick and choosing, because that's the only way it can be is under a PUD, which is a classification for a piece of land, which is a zoning classification.
Mr. Harless, can you explain to us why the extension of the cul-de-sac was approved?
Well, the applicant applied for it, and I think it's what you're saying, what Kelly is saying is that the applicant was requesting that the 1,000 foot plus length on the cul-de-sac be approved by the planning commission, and the planning commission had a memo on that asking for that, realizing that they had to have a supermajority in order to prove that, and the planning commission granted that.
During the planning commission meeting, did anybody in the
without
audience
rezoning
have
it to
those
PUD.
notes?
I'm sorry, let's not talk over you.
I know. During the planning commission meeting, did anyone have those notes?
The planning
About the
commissioners had
variance?
that. The planning commissioners had that. That was part of the packet.
The planning commission did. Did any of the audience have that?
It's available online.
It's available, you requested and.
The minutes are still not available from that meeting.
Minutes, I'd be happy to.
They're not available online. It's still today.
They're part of the council, agenda.
Because I was online again today.
Let's change the subject just a little bit, whether it's PUD, R6, or whatever number. I have more of an issue with the wetland than I do the cul-de-sac, to be honest with you. Because you guys know, I'm wearing you out about water. And from reading your report, it appears to me there's a strong possibility there could be a water issue there. And there's some steps that the person that's trying to develop this property needs to take before he can even develop it. So, I, in good conscience, when I'm not gonna be, when I get unelected in a couple of years, I'm not gonna have somebody telling me, you're the one that caused me water issues.
Well, sir, the wetlands isn't a detention facility. It's for wildlife, and the Department of Interior will have to evaluate the pond before anything can be done to it.
Is there water in the pond?
Only when there's
Is that
a
a
wet
yes or
time.
no? Is there water in the pond?
There was enough water in the pond to recently kill a horse.
And we're having the water quality tested as well. That's another regulatory.
That was
approval we'll
also
have to-
brought up during the planning commission
But
meeting.
the pond does not stay wet year round. No, is it wet right now? I haven't been out there today.
Does it get deep enough to kill an animal?
I haven't. I
Yes,
don't take
sir.
that. I don't take that lightly, Lord. But I don't know.
So I do have a question for you, Mr. You would never. Sorry, I didn't have my.
Go ahead.
speaker on. Did I hear you say in your letter that you would be okay with 32 properties?
It wasn't in the letter, but that was kind of what I was getting at. You know, it's.
So would you have a problem
So
with
just
the?
go to 1,000 feet and go on.
But would you have a problem with the cul-de-sac at 1,000 foot if there were 32 homes in there?
That won't be possible. Oh, with 32
You
homes?
wouldn't have any
Did you
problem
say
if there was,
32?
yeah, if there were
Yes,
32
sorry.
homes. So the cul-de-sac isn't an issue.
It's an issue to stand on, yes.
And again, I don't like variances, but that's not really, it's an issue that you don't really care about. You care about 32 versus 38
The
homes.
amount of traffic that's going to create in our neighborhood, every one of those cars that comes out is going to turn left and go right across my house. You're going to hear the acceleration, the headlights every time. There's no other way out of that addition.
And trust me, I understand that completely. I also understand a piece of property that's available to be developed, if somebody buys it and they fit all the requirements, again, I don't like a variance. They have the right under our laws and our coding to build those houses.
Okay, why is there a code of 1,000 feet anyway?
I don't have a clue why there is.
Safety? Emergency
So-
safety? Safety of the residents?
But I can't answer that. If you're asking
So
me a
why
rhetorical
do-
question, I don't know.
It's just out there. So why do we give a variance for that?
You're asking the wrong person, because I'm on your side when it comes
I'm
to variance.
just throwing it out there. It's
Okay,
conversation, sir.
But all I'm trying to do is get around to, it's not so much the variance, it's the number of
It's been
houses.
zoned residential for since 1985. Mr. Ballou did that a long time ago, David Ballou, which I know most of you know. So he did that a long time ago. So fighting that is not an issue. It's not something that can be done. But to be able to just pull one part of another section to pull into is not actually correct.
So we have an
And-
attorney sitting up here.
And if we're
Heather.
talking about the variance at the time,
Can you describe any kind of, from a legal perspective? Now, let's give her a whole bunch of leeway.
I hear you.
She's wearing the hat as the interim city attorney. She just started here as our prosecutor, what, 6 months ago? Okay. So if she doesn't know the answer to the question, give her, because this is, this is a specialized area. And if I put you on the spot, I apologize.
yeah, because reading code's fun.
Do you have any input from your law school days?
I can give you a copy of the code right now if you'd like.
He's talking about how the variance, how you're able to suck one part of the code into another, and that was my terminology.
And maybe I can help. Because I asked Kelly, I was like, did they apply for a R6 zoning, or did they apply for a PUD, and where they wanted to go with the development? It's that we don't go out and request people to develop unless it's commercial or economic development. But in this case, the applicant came to us for wanting to go and develop this piece of property. In discussions with them, they wanted to do a longer cul-de-sac. They had the option of going to a PUD and asking for that, or going with the straight zoning and requesting for a variance. And so the applicant chose to say, I would rather go to apply for and try to get a variance on the length of the cul-de-sac. We have had cul-de-sacs, there's one to the north and one to the south that is longer than this one. And
They were built 50 years ago.
and we have them in other places. The fire department didn't have an issue with it, and due to the nature of this development, staff didn't have an issue with it. And this is why we have public hearings, and you know, there were people at the planning commission that voiced their concerns, and you know, that's how we got to the variance part of this, was the applicant applied for it.
Is
The
the
streets that
applicant in the
that
audience?
he's talking about is 4th and 6th Streets, which were built over 50 years ago. This code was written either 2012 or 2014, revised.
Is the applicant in the audience?
Yes.
Could you come in and address some of these issues? Please state your name and address for the record.
Frank McClendon, 1723 Britton Road, Oklahoma City.
Okay, obviously we've got some issues. And you applied for a variance for a longer cul-de-sac. The density of the housing is a concern. It is of mine too. That's a lot of houses to be stuck over there. So why don't you walk us through what you're thinking on this development and the length of the cul-de-sac and that and the density of the homes?
Yes, sir. First of all, thank you very much. The density of the community that we're trying to construct is within code. I wasn't trying to ask for any greater number of lots. I wanted to stay within the acceptable range that the city normally accepts, and I wasn't trying to ask for anything special. I did kept with the R6 zoning requirements of, I believe, 70% Ford homes and so many J-swing garages and all of the concept that City Midwest City wants to keep, including the larger lots. I wasn't aware that the cul-de-sac was in excess of what it needed to be until I was notified by staff that it was a little bit over and that I needed to apply for a variance, in which case that's what I did. I don't know why the regulations say that it has to be 1,000 or less. I'm not sure. Maybe it's the width of the lots going down the street. I'm not sure. If it's safety regulations, we sure will do whatever we need to do to create speed breaks or a curve in the street or something in the middle of the street to break that up, whatever we need to do. The first part of the street actually is 215 feet, and so the part where the houses are all the way to the end of the cul-de-sac, I believe, are right at 1,000 feet. So for the most part of the street, the houses don't even front that front part of the street. So I'm not sure what the 1,000-foot requirement is, but if it's where houses are, I'm under 1,000 feet there. So I'm not so sure if there's creating a danger in that. If it's more than 1,000 feet, is it a speedway or whatever? I'm not sure, but I'm willing to do what we need to do to create a speed break if that's necessary.
Would you like for me to read the code?
No, sir, I read it. I read your email, and I know what it says.
It says only under that are zoned planned unit districts, planned unit development districts.
With all the discussion that has arisen as a result of this, I think it would be advisable for this council to consider tabling this measure for 30 days and allowing community development to come back and answer some of the questions that have been raised by Mr. Melton, and then come back with a fresh set of eyes on this. That's just my recommendation.
I'm all kinds of good with that.
And Mr. McClendon, we're not trying to stonewall you, but we want to make sure, if you haven't picked up on some of the discussion, and I'm very familiar with, I am kind of concerned with the traffic flow on St. Paul. That's going to increase it quite a bit. So, what I would suggest that we do is that we table this measure for some additional information, that we try to work through some of the issues and come back in 30 days to see if we can't mitigate at least some of them. Now, Mr. Melton, you understand what was trying to be explained to you is that when a developer comes in and wants to develop a piece of land, and it's already zoned, and this is not a zoning issue, it's already zoned for R6.
That is correct.
So, we don't have a lot of latitude in preventing this from going forward. But what we can do as a council is to make sure some of your issues and some of the residents' issues are mitigated before we move forward. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
We should not table this, though, should we? We should take no action, because if they're going to make any kind of changes, tabling it brings it back exactly the way it is.
Well, it's as a preliminary plat. I think it can be continued on as a preliminary plat.
It's just preliminary, nothing's set in stone, so it could be changed or brought back in front of us.
I will state for me, I in no way, shape, or form want to stand in this gentleman's way from building the homes that he wants on the land that he has purchased. I just don't like variances. So I'm just telling you where I'm coming from. I understand where you guys are coming from completely. It would be nice if there were less homes, but so long as he follows within all the rules that are set forth, then he can build his homes. But as for me, I'm going to vote no as long as there's a variance on this.
Can I ask Billy another question before we
Yes,
close
sir.
this out? Okay. On page 2, it talks about that he has to go back, and we talked about this upstairs, he has to go back to the Department of Wildlife to eliminate that pond, correct?
That's yes.
Okay. That pond, whether it was intended to be a detention pond or not, apparently it's acting as one because it's holding water.
Right, it's recognized as one.
Okay. That's going to affect the other land over there, correct? I mean, I'm not an engineer,
It
but
is, and that's actually what, as we move forward with this, that's what I was going to ask, so that we would have clear direction to, the applicant and also to the staff. If I'm understanding what I'm hearing correctly, that we would like to see that the cul-de-sac length be addressed, possibly the density addressed,
And I think you
and then
probably
also
want to
maybe
keep
make
them-
sure that the wetlands issues addressed, which would require them to get clearance from DEQ and also the wildlife department.
The traffic is one thing, and I agree with the mayor on that. But I know you're getting tired of the water, and everybody else is too. So, and that's the biggest issue I had when I read it was, we're going to take away a place where the water's going. Where's it going to go?
Well,
And
they'd
we're
be
putting
requ-
in
they
more.
would be, yeah, they'd be required to do
Well-
the detention. But
And also, let me interject something, Mr. Melton, and ladies and gentlemen from that area. You need to be actively engaged in this. We have 2 other developers looking to develop over in that area. I'm sure you will be engaged on it, but you guys need to be engaged on it as well. 'Cause this is going forward, and there's other developments or developers that are looking to develop over there. So, Billy and Kelly, we can start mitigating some of those issues that are going to come forward. We would be well served to do so. Is there any further discussion on this? Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, really briefly, but I also have a concern with regard to the pond. If it's going to serve truly as a detention pond as it is now, that we make sure not only is wildlife, quote unquote, signing off on this, but also that we're addressing the sufficiency and any risk associated with that detention pond, just like we do with all the others.
Right,
Yeah,
and that's why I was saying that we'd get clearance before, from DEQ.
So if that's
as we move
deemed a
forward.
wetlands, we're going to have to trade that out, aren't we? We're going to have to give some land up to mitigate that.
The-
Again, it's regulated by the Department of Interior, the Wildlife Department, they will make the decision on if there's gonna be a mitigation, if the pond has to stay as is, if it can be filled
When are
in
we
with
gonna
no
get that reading?
consequence.
At their pleasure?
Yeah,
And-
I wish
and-
I
and
could
thir-
tell you, but.
At the
In
state
30
of Oklahoma
days,
State, okay.
yeah, and 30 days would be pushing it in order to also get staff reports. I'm just asking if maybe we could push this off until we get these things from the applicant so that we can bring those things to you.
I'll entertain that in a motion, sure.
So do we table it or take no action, or what do we do, city manager?
Well, we have a, I mean, this is it's not a public hearing, but it certainly is a public meeting here. So I think it would be preferable to set a date, table it to a specific date. I don't think we can just set a date based upon when we have the information.
So if we just table it for 30 days, and then if it's not ready, we
I
can
would
continue it
say,
again?
I would say,
Oh,
let's
60.
let's push it to 60.
September 18th.
Well.
And we're required to act on it within 60
No,
days.
September 25th.
I'm sorry?
We're required to act on it within 60 days, so.
September 11th.
60
Right.
days from the
So
planning
that's
commission.
why we can't
so-
put it out 60 days additionally.
So they
So
acted,
45,
Billy, they
basically.
acted on it on the 7th, correct? July 3rd, okay. I'm sorry, sheesh, where am I?
So September 3rd is 60 days.
Okay,
Mr.
I'm
Mc-
very,
Mr.
def-
McCl-
I'm
Mr.
very
McClendon
defensive
can-
of our guys here. They can't have a rushed meeting. It gets out a month in advance. They get all their stuff out there. They have to do notifications.
Mr. McClendon can give permission to extend that deadline, though. The applicant can.
Would you be open to that, Mr. McClendon?
Yes, sir, that's fine.
Have to give a date.
If we want to hit the 60 days, I think it's got to go August 28th.
He just said.
He'd be open to extending it. So
Okay.
why don't we go the first week in September? Or the second week,
September 25th. Are you good with an extension till September 25th?
September 11th is fine with me.
Okay. Then we'll go September 11th.
So the chair would entertain a motion to table until September 11th.
Motion,
Moved.
go ahead.
Sorry. Move to table to September 11th.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. Appreciate it. Thank you all for being here. Next item for discussion.
This is discussion consideration of a request to waive the 90-day deposit timeframe to create a water meter account and deposit $75 to avoid the additional $7,000 assessment fee to connect to city water for residents along Rofan and Hand Road corridor.
Ms. Stephanie Clayton, are you still in the audience? Could you come? Please state your name and address for the record.
Stephanie Clayton, 11305 Rofan Road, Midwest City.
I understand that you're the requesting party to extend that 90 days. Can you explain to us why?
When we received the letter, I'm not sure what happened to it. It was misplaced. And I remember seeing 90 days and seeing April, and I thought I had until the first week of July. And I called in to inquire what all I needed to bring in, and I was told that the deadline was the 25th, and I panicked and started calling around and asking if there was any way that I could bring this deposit in. My husband and I, it took a lot for us to get together $75. It wasn't something that we could just do right away. And we got it together, and I thought I had the time to bring it in. And I was this late. and we have been hanging on to the money and hoping that the council will open this back up for us. We have lived at that address since January 2012, when we moved back after my husband got out of active duty service with the Army. It's been a family home. We purchased it in 2015, and we were looking forward to being able to do this because this would be a big development for us, but it wasn't. And I admit I should have paid better attention. I should have been better about keeping this, and I am begging you to please open this back up for us.
So, Patrick, you referenced that there are multiple other people now interested. Does that mean multiple other people who are wanting to, if we open this up for one, they're going to want to squeeze in this as well?
I would think so, Councilman, but the lady here is the only one that has come up with this request at this time.
Well, wait. Okay, so Councilman Byrne and I were just discussing this. I think we could make an extension potentially for those owners who own the property as of March 27th of 2018. That was the date of the meeting when we set out this term, and I made that lengthy motion on this matter, providing 90 days from that date in order to put down the $75 deposit. So if we were to extend that opportunity just for those folks who own the property as of March 27th of 2018, that would just be essentially the same group that was here before us previously.
So let me make a suggestion that we entertain a motion to extend this offer for 30 more days.
Well, but only as to the owners that were in place as of
at that time.
March
And
27th.
I think we should only do it for 10 days. I'll be perfectly honest with you. They've had 90. I understand. I'm not getting onto you. I think 120 is too much.
Billy, if we do this, I know, just so you know, and I'm not sure who in his office told you no, but if whoever did was doing what we asked them to do. So they're not.
No,
okay.
I'm not upset at anybody.
How long would it take for you to put together a letter, get it mailed, get it out there to the people that live in this area that have not signed up, and give them one last opportunity to sign up for this?
They already sent a
No,
letter
just
out,
give,
Pat.
I mean, if we're gonna do it, let's give them one chance, one more chance.
I agree.
But we've had multiple meetings.
Yes, and I agree.
And I'm going to say this, and I don't know any way of making this not sound as it's going to sound. Our job isn't to hold hands. Our
Hold
job
hands.
isn't to hold hands. This meeting wasn't like this just came up on March 27th. We've had these meetings before that, months before. We came up with this idea. Best and longest motion ever made was on this particular one by you. We gave 90 days. We sent out letters. This is, by my count, the second time we've sent out letters, the first being in 2012 when the vast majority of neighbors said they were not interested. The second being after March 27th, giving them the opportunity. I'm not opposed to giving an extra 10 or 15 days for the very people who had that land before March 27th. But I don't think that we need to go through additional expense and that we need to go through additional work for a department that's already relatively overworked on an issue that we've given a lot of leeway to the residents there and a lot less expense to those residents there.
Councilman Reed, I appreciate your comments on that, and I agree with the premise of, I agree with the premise of not, incurring any additional costs related to this project. There's no further discussion. I mean, I would make a motion that we extend the opportunity to pay the $75 fee as discussed at the March 27th, 2018 council meeting, for another 15 days from today's date, so that it provides the residents who own the property as of March 27th, 2018, the opportunity to pay the fee and join in if they have not done so already.
Okay, I have
It would seem
statement.
that we would, if we're gonna do this, that we're gonna have to do it for a length of time that's gonna afford a 30 or another opportunity for those folks to come in and make a deposit. That's
Will
why I
they
made
have
the
to-
suggestion of 30 days.
Yes.
That's
And
why
I'm
I
fine
made
with the 30, I'm just
suggestion of
trying to
30 days.
compromise.
Billy, will you need to get letters out to these people?
No, we're not doing letters, we're not incurring that cost. And that would take more time, that would just increase the time.
And could we, in lieu of a letter, could we do a non-call in those two streets?
We will get the word out however you would like. I mean, it's at your pleasure.
What's the easiest way for you?
We already probably have the letters in the database, and to send out a letter, but I almost promise you this will encourage some either more
Well,
requests.
y'all are in touch with each other, correct? Y'all have contact
Yes.
within your neighborhood. How about we just,
15 days, what you do for one, you do for all. You've already made the motion, I will second it.
What?
15 days, and it'll allow the residents that are there, that are owners as of the March 27th, who either through accident, which it happens, things get away from you, or lack of understanding, or whatever, it gives them the opportunity to come back without us incurring any other expenses or anything.
Okay, I would like to say this. I think, Billy, for is what you are planning to do, how long would it take you to do what you need to do? And if it's gonna take some time, I do agree with the mayor was saying with 30 days, but then again, tell us about what you need to do.
What we can do is we'll be glad to send out some letters. We have that
Because
database.
we
We'll
need-
reconcile. I think we can probably get it out this week.
Because we need to understand, this is a very important move that they are making, and that we get ready to they're setting ground to these meters and such. This is something that's gonna affect a lot of people, this community life. And I think we should not look at it, likely like it's so small. This is a very big thing. We need to
It
be
is- it
careful
is.
on how we pursue with this community.
right,
And
but I
that's-
think the previous notice, Ms. Allen, as well as the 90 days we
understand
gave them
that.
before, was plenty of time. So, I mean, I think we're
I
giving them a
understand what
short
you're
window
saying,
to
but we
cure.
need to allow Billy time to do what he needs to do. So that's why I'm saying 30 days would be
Well, hold on.
futile.
Point of order, we do have a motion and we have a second.
Was it for 15 or 30?
15.
15 from today.
I thought we were still under discussion. Okay.
And I do have a second. Any further discussion? Do a roll call vote.
Ward 1,
Move to approve. Yes.
2,
Yes.
3,
Yes.
4,
Yes.
5.
No, 30 days.
Mayor,
Yes, motion carries. You have,
Thank you guys so much.
so welcome.
Thank you.
Thank
you're
you.
welcome.
You're helping other ones too in your community. Thank you.
Make sure you get the word out.
Oh, yes, 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 thank you so
So
much.
Patrick, you can get staff to take out.
Okay, next item is discussion consideration of the ODOT presentation outlining the modifications and alternatives concerning the new I-40 corridor through the city of Midwest City. Mr. Taylor, thank you for your patience. And
Thank you, Mayor.
You have
Thank
the
you.
floor.
Thank you, Council. Thank you, City Manager. It's a pleasure to be here. We're excited to be here. My name is Brian Taylor. I'm your public servant for highways for North Central Oklahoma. So my area is from just north side of Moore to Kansas, about 2 counties wide, over 9 counties. And what we have for you today is the purpose is to present you with information on what we've been working on to inform you of the potential improvements that we have under consideration and to solicit your input. The purpose of the project that we're presenting tonight is to improve the capacity, operations, and safety for Interstate 40. Following the presentation, we will be available for questions and answers, and we'll be here as long as you want us to be here. The presentation we have put together is about half of what our stakeholder meeting presentations were. We've had 2 public meetings now being stakeholder meetings, one for Section 1 and one for Section 2, where the break occurs at about Hudaburg. Those presentations were about 45 minutes. We pared this down to about 20 minutes, but if you would like it to be pared down even further, just let me know and we can go straight to the strip maps of the concepts and ideas that we have for you. But I wanted to introduce somebody to you, Jenny Salee. Jenny is with Garver and Associates. She is my consultant for this particular project, and Garver is a established, well-respected, very capable engineering firm that has a lot of experience working on complex projects such as this, and I'll let Jenny take over right now. Jenny?
Now, did you guys want us to go through the presentation, or did you want to go straight to the strip maps? Presentation? Great.
It was the whole enchilada.
All right, the whole enchilada. So thanks for having us today to talk to you about these improvements on I-40. So as Mr. Taylor said, we are studying the entire corridor from I-35 all the way to the Douglas interchange. We broke this into 2 sections. Section 1 begins at Reno and ends just east of Hudaburg. And Section 2 starts at Hudaburg and goes to the west side of the Douglas interchange, which is a separate project. So what is the purpose of the study? The purpose of the study is to improve the capacity, operations, and safety of I-40 within those study limits. This portion of I-40 is a significant freight corridor across the country. It serves Tinker Air Force Base as one of the largest employers. There's also existing congestion, which contributes to a high accident rate. So the needs that we've identified through this corridor include that the traffic will continue to grow and congestion will worsen. There are a high number of accidents on I-40 and on the frontage roads. And then some of the bridges are nearing their end of their useful life, or they're not wide enough to accommodate the traffic and the new lanes that we need to put through there. So some of the key proposed improvements we have on all our alternatives include additional through lanes on I-40, also modifications to access along the ramps and the frontage roads, and then some new bridges. So we did go out and count traffic today, and then we projected that traffic into the future. And you can see that we're projecting 94,300 vehicles per day in the year 2045 on this stretch of I-40, with 12% of those being trucks. We also looked at projected traffic on Southeast 29th Street. And we also went out and did traffic flow observations to see where the troubled areas are. And as you are well aware, Southeast 29th and Air Depot, that intersection is very congested and has problems moving traffic through. And then we also saw the typical slowdowns for rush hour traffic, both in the AM and the PM, in both directions, because people are going to Tinker as well as to downtown. So we then took a look at the collision data for Section 2, and this is what we call a heat map. It shows areas of high accidents or high collisions in red. So you can see at Southeast 29th and Air Depot, there's a large red dot because it is the busiest intersection in this study area. There are 12 phases to this signal because it's hooked with other intersections, so it takes a long time to move through there. And you guys drive it, I'm sure you know all about that one. So go back for a second, please. Through this area, on I-40, there are 924 documented collisions for a 10-year period from 2005 to 2015. Approximately 40% of those involve injury and 4% of those involve fatalities, with 38 fatalities through the stretch in that 10-year period. The most frequent types of collisions that we see on I-40 are rear-end collisions and side swipes. Those can be mostly attributed to the congestion, because people are stopping on I-40, and that's not what you expect on an interstate. So you see the rear-end collisions, or people trying to switch lanes to avoid people, so the side swipes. So some of the existing conditions that we need to improve along I-40 include, first, the roadway deficiencies. First, we looked at the access to I-40. Click. And you can see that there's an on-ramp shown here in blue from Town Center onto I-40, and an off-ramp from I-40 to Air Depot shown in yellow. The distance between those two ramps is 1,200 feet. For this weave area, for traffic getting on and traffic getting off, people are weaving back and forth across each other to make these different movements. That area, that length today is 1,200 feet. Today's standard is a minimum 1,600 feet for that type of movement. We also have very closely spaced intersections, not only at Air Depot, but at Town Center, and that's hard to move traffic through there. One of the biggest geometric deficiencies we see is this curve right on top of Southeast 29th Street. So there's this sharp curve with the super elevation not enough, and we actually have seen, you see these huge warning signs that tell people to slow down. So that's one of the things we want to improve too, is that curve and the super elevation, or the banking of the road through that curve. So we did develop some design alternatives. We're going to show you 3 today. We actually developed many more than that. We've worked on modifications and ideas. We're still working on ideas, and that's what we're here to talk to you today about. Nothing is set in stone yet. So alternative 2-1, we're calling it the modified existing. So how can we prove what's there now and try to accommodate the traffic? So we did add additional through lanes on I-40. And then we also improved the auxiliary lanes feeding the ramps by lengthening them for proper acceleration and deceleration.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
I understand the division of the project.
Yes.
Could you give us a little bit of understanding of what you might envision from Hudaburg to Sooner Road? Simply because that lies within the city.
Sure.
And what happens there may have some effect on what happens here. So do you have a?
Yes, we have a visual for you.
Okay, thank you.
Can you go ahead and go out to Google Earth and turn on, yes, that one. And zoom in between, don't do the tour on that one. Just zoom in between. So we presented 2 concepts for this section 1 at the stakeholder meeting. And basically those were, more lanes, more auxiliary lanes on the main line. And then we looked at one-way frontage roads, and we looked at 2-way frontage roads along this entire corridor. Right now there's kind of a mixture. And so to be safer and to be able to have driver expectations, we wanted them either all one-way or all 2-way. So overwhelmingly, the support for the one-way system is what we heard at the stakeholder meeting, because the 2-way frontage roads actually require button hooks that have a much wider footprint and take up a lot more real estate and affect a lot more homes and businesses. So the one-way concept is what was the most supported at the stakeholder meeting. So
the one-way concept that was supported was a
This is on TV, so.
Yes, sir. Thank you. The one-way concept that was supported over Section 1 was a continuous one-way frontage road. Is what received overwhelming support. Just one-way frontage roading what's there was not presented as an option. So the continuous frontage roads with the turnarounds is what we received support for within the Section 1.
Can I ask a quick question? Sorry.
Yes.
And maybe this isn't even applicable in the modern age, but years ago, I'm from Illinois originally. I was fascinated because I'm from farm country, and going to visit Chicago, they have lanes that switch, morning rush hour, afternoon rush hour. So they've got extra lane space but depends on the time of day as to which direction you're heading. I mean, is that something that you all ever contemplate? I've never seen it done in Oklahoma, but I mean, where we have like a finite amount of space, because of course, looking at it from our perspective, we're looking at it from the standpoint of, you know, what's the impact gonna be on what we're gonna lose in terms of land and usage of land surrounding, the change or the addition to I-40. Driving it every day, I certainly appreciate anything that improves traffic flow. However, I'm just curious about, you know, is that something that's ever contemplated, or?
It is something that we talk about, and it is part of the idea process that we go through. The last time that we used that through a construction zone because of our AM peaks, and we had the ability to move the barrier wall with a certain type of machine that would scoot the barrier wall over approximately one lane, and we changed it 2 times a day to accommodate the peak flows. We do not have any city streets or state highways that are directional at this time, but those are things that, as part of this study, we look at. We're looking at there's a lot of ideas and concepts that will be ultimately incorporated into this that we haven't presented to the public yet. Right now, we've had 2 public meetings, but we've had probably 10 informal meetings with the stakeholders, and I'm always available.
I would say that this corridor, as far as doing directional lanes, that's something we talked about, but that's usually for specific, you know, rush hours going to downtown and then coming home afterwards. But with Tinker in the middle, it kind of throws things off a little bit because we have rush hours to and from Tinker too. That is the, that's, go ahead and turn that back on again, Nick. That's the two-way concept, so you can kind of see the impacts that we were seeing with those button hooks that we would need to accommodate two-way frontage roads.
I stepped off to ask a couple of questions from our economic development guy. Just so I now know where we're at, which one of these 3 plans are we looking at, the first, second, or third?
This one's not on there. This is Uterberg 940.
Okay.
This is the section 1
We're trying to
area.
get an idea of how that's going to be impacted as well.
Okay.
So go ahead and turn back on the one-way frontage roads and zoom in on Sooner. Yes, that one right there. So specifically at Sooner, you can see, can you zoom in a little bit more, Nick? We have the protected turnarounds under the bridge. That allows traffic to circulate from one side to the other side of the I-40 without going through a signalized intersection. You can only use those with one-way frontage roads. So not only, yes, this is Sooner right here.
So one of the
You have the, do you have the
one-way
two-way on?
frontage roads.
You have the wrong one on, Nick, I'm sorry.
One-way frontage
There we
roads,
go.
and one of the things I was talking back there, one of the downsides about those is.
We can't hear you, sir.
Sorry, was that Jill? Was Jill? You should listen better, Jill. One of the concerns about one-way frontage roads is those turn into just speed zones because drivers know for the most part cops aren't coming the other way, and so you're just encouraging really fast traffic.
Well, and that's one of the things we talk about on section 1 is that the frontage roads, we do need them to have some traffic move a little faster than like a residential road, because we are trying to get traffic to the ramps. So we are looking at modified access to some of these frontage roads. Right now there's a drive and street connection all along these, so you have access points all along that are potential conflict points and also slow down traffic. We are looking at reducing those number of access points, so it is going to be faster than a residential street. But I hear your concerns about it not being just a total speed zone. But there will be points of traffic entering in which naturally slows down people.
Yeah, is this the one that has minimal impact on Rose State as well?
Yes. Now, I
So-
will say, can you zoom into Hudaburg? One of the issues that we're having is we have to replace the Hudaburg Bridge,
Right.
right? Because it's not wide enough underneath or on top to accommodate the number of lanes we need. That's an older style bridge that we call a haunch style bridge. It has a much narrower or smaller structural depth than the new bridges we have today. So Hudaburg's going to have to go up, raise the elevation of that road is going to have to raise. And because the frontage road intersections are so close, the frontage roads are going to have to raise in that area as well to meet that new elevated intersection. So there are going to be some impacts to some of the businesses right around Hudaburg.
Bears the cost of, if you raise the frontage road, that means that their access to their business.
Yes, sir. We specifically have visited this particular example. We are visiting with Hudaburg, and we have had our engineers look at exactly how tall a retaining wall, will his driveways work, how far are we going to have to make the adjustments to keep a decent grade going down Hudaburg. So, and that was the result of the first stakeholder meeting, and that's what we're doing here. We need you to tell us what you like, what you don't like, what your needs are, and we will take that information just like during the presentation visiting with Hudaburg. We've had 2 follow-up meetings with them continuing to answer their questions. We're also looking at the possibility of using shallow beams for this bridge, which allows us to lower the grade of the bridge just a little bit.
Okay, but who bears the cost?
Oh, that's the Department of Transportation, so ultimately it's the taxpayer of the state of Oklahoma.
So do you have exit ramp at Hudaburg, or will will people get off at Sooner Road and make their way down to Hudaburg and then be able to get across the bridge, or have you decided that yet?
There is access, but the access has changed. It's going to be different, and it has to do with when Jenny was telling you about the weaving distance. So you have cars coming in and cars getting off, and the conflict that occurs. And although we were able to build highways with that less weave in the past, we no longer have the ability to do that. Our partners, the Federal Highway Administration, had set certain standards, and we have to use those standards and go by those standards. And in particular, being an interstate, the standards don't get any higher. They're elevated for interstate. And as a result of that, a lot of things that we were able to do in the past, we no longer have the ability to do it. So we have to find different and better ways. And I'll let Jenny show you some of the ideas. Could you bring?
Brian, let me just, one last question that kind of
Yes, sir.
cut into the chase here. And it relates to how this affects more of Midwest City and 29th Street and Air Depot. Will there be an exit ramp at Hudaburg, or will the exit ramp, and I'm talking about going eastbound, or will the exit ramp be at Sooner Road for Hudaburg?
I believe it's at Sooner, and I'll let.
Nick, can you pan back a little
So,
bit?
in other words, so if somebody is trying to get to Sam's on eastbound I-40, will they need to get off at Sooner Road, or will they be able to get off on Hudaburg as they are now?
We can bring up that print and we can trace it with the hand and show you the direction with our pointer on how they would exit. So if you were wanting to go to Rose State or Sam's, can you drive that for them?
Yes. Go back a little further to the west, Nick. Okay, so for this alternative, right here, after you cross 15th Street, you would get off on the ramp going eastbound to the frontage road. And then you continue on the frontage road. If you're going to Sam's Club, you'd have to cross Sooner. And then keep continuing down the frontage road, then across Hudaburg. Now, can you turn on one of the Section 2 alternatives? Not the first one, the second one, 2-2.
You're gonna have to get off.
Hang on.
Sooner
Just a minute.
Road.
No, not that one. That's 1-2.
You're gonna get off on before Center Road and follow the frontage road.
2-2.
That is one option. She's gonna show
I know.
you additional options.
So there's also, we've also put another exit ramp in section 2, just to the east of Hudaburg. So if you wanted to go to Sam specifically, that ramp would service for you.
Okay.
But if you wanted any of those businesses further to the west, you would have to get off
You-
before sooner.
At 15th.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, in some of
Okay.
these options, can you flick on, turn on the last one and turn off? Like for instance here, we were able to put a protected turnaround underneath the Southeast 29th Street so people could circulate back in if alternative 2-3 is chosen or something similar to that. So a lot of the access depends on which alternatives we pick for section 2.
So now, if I'm seeing this correctly, you've got like kind of like a Y split at where currently the Southeast 29th exit is that correct? Because you've got it splitting up back to the west there. Is that right?
I'm sorry, I'm not following you. Are you talking about where his hand is right now?
Nope. Head up and stop right there. It looks like a Y to me, so it looks like you're exiting off the access road there, and you can take a veer and go down that side street, which will get you connected to Sam's.
Correct.
Or you can head on down to fully meet 29th Street more on the east side, kind of like it is now on the exit. And you've got that protected, I don't know, I usually call them Texas turnarounds type of thing.
That's fine, and both those options are available.
Okay, so there is a Y split there where you can go either way type of thing. I gotcha.
For this alternative, that's
I
not on
gotcha.
All right.
Okay.
Go back.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No,
I
this is
didn't
great
mean
discussion. This is what we came here for. So can you go back to the PowerPoint presentation? So is everybody kind of caught up on section 1? Okay. So going back to section 2, we have 3 alternatives to show you tonight. I will preface this with there are some changes on some of the bridges on the far east end of section 2 based on some discussions with Tinker and their clear zone. So we're still working through some of those with Tinker. So again, this is a work in progress. So for alternative 2-1, we're calling it the modified existing. It's the closest to the existing that we have with just more additional lanes. There are additional through lanes on I-40, plus new auxiliary lanes that are longer to feed these ramps. We are looking at reducing the number of ramps. Specifically on this one, we're eliminating the 2 ramps on the west side of Town Center. Thank you so much, Anita. On the west side of Town Center, that was because of that weave distance, because we couldn't meet that weave distance. And then, but that required additional ramp lanes over at Air Depot, because we're now shifting some of that traffic over to Air Depot. So if we take a tour of the whole alternative 2-1, so starting here, just east of Hudaburg, for 2-1, which is the modified existing, you can see here that we eliminated that one close intersection to the bridge. We are actually funneling everybody down Arthur Harris. We do improve the curve here on I-40 across the Southeast 29th Street Bridge. And then here at Air Depot, you can see that we've added additional lanes on the ramps. We've added an additional lane on Southeast 29th. So this is basically the same configuration you have today, but with more lanes. Then as we continue to the east, you can see that the visitor center remains as is. And then at Town Center, we did eliminate the ramps on the west side of Town Center, but we still maintain the ramps on the east side of Town Center. You'll see that this does impact Tinker at the water towers and the building next to the water towers. As we continue to move east, again, Southeast 29th Street is pretty much left exactly where it is today, maybe an additional right-hand turn lane. We have done a traffic analysis on all these alternatives. We're getting rid of the Arnold Street Bridge. And then here we need a new bridge crossing at Industrial because it's not wide enough to accommodate the new ramps coming from the Douglas Interchange design.
So if you miss the exit at Air Depot, you gotta go all the way to almost Douglas Boulevard.
You gotta go to, yes, if you're traveling eastbound, yes, Industrial. In this alternative, yes. But like I said before, this bridge, we're in discussion with Tinker right now on the location of this bridge. It may shift further to the east to get out of their clear zone.
So Tinker's okay with losing their water towers?
Yeah, they're not in use. Matter of fact, it's a blessing.
So any more other questions on alternative two? Oh, where we bump up, right there?
Well, there, and then take it back to the west and see what happens on 29th Street. What kind of
We are adding a few turn lanes along 29th Street. There where his hand is, there's an additional right-hand turn lane for eastbound traffic. And then we do a little bit of restriping and channelizing along the existing 29th Street back to the east. We will be adding a few lanes on Air Depot. And then if you continue going to the east, Nick.
Can I ask a question before you move?
Sure.
When you're there at Air Depot and you're headed to the west on 29th and you exit there at Air Depot, so currently there's that little, there's supposedly 2 lanes where you can enter the on-ramp to I-40 headed westbound, but one of them is like a teeny tiny
short one.
Little spot, like you could park 3 cars there and you're done. So under this design, does that widen to 2 lanes on the on-ramp, or does it stay? Because it looks like it's divided all the way down, if I'm seeing that correctly.
Are you talking about?
Yes,
the
right where
on-ramp?
he's going.
Okay, follow the on-ramp, Nick.
Right there.
Yes,
It's
follow the
striped,
on-ramp.
so is there 2 lanes
Yes,
all the
there's
way on?
2 lanes entering. Continue panning to the west. There's actually 2 lanes that enter onto the interstate, and then the outside lane will drop. But it'll be, that's where, because we need another lane as we continue to move west. So instead of 3 through lanes, we now have 4 through lanes as we move west from Southeast 29th. So those 2 lanes coming on, one of them is its own lane, and then the other one will have to merge after the bridge.
Thank you.
So it's much longer than today. Following Southeast 29th Street, there you go. Again, this is more just striping. There's no additional lanes being added here at Town Center. Continue panning. Again, this is just striping. But on here, on the north side, we were looking at adding some right turn lanes at Marshall. We don't know for sure yet at Midwest Boulevard. But those are the things that we're looking at as we move forward. And then the reason that we had to bump out Southeast 29th Street here at Industrial was, again, that new style of bridge is a deeper bridge, so it needs to go higher up in the air. So to be able to get down at a nice grade, not a real steep grade, to intersect with 29th, we had to push 29th Street out a little further for that connection, new connection for Industrial. Now, one of the things we have been talking to Tinker about is moving this crossing over to Engle to get outside their clear zone. And if we, as we continue to look at that, if we do that, we would probably leave Southeast 29th Street on its existing alignment because we'd have more room to get down to Southeast 29th Street.
And
after the
this
bridge.
option affords us the least disruption of traffic on 29th Street during the construction, correct?
Correct. Well, you'd have this down here possibly.
I mean, there will be disruptions.
Yes.
But it would be kept at a minimum because that is our economic center, and that's a big concern for us.
Yes.
You know, and it has been since we started this discussion 2 years ago, so.
Correct.
It should be ODOT is concern also.
It is.
Because the only way to pay for this is those tax dollars.
There's nothing on that picture or that deal, there's nothing on the on-ramp at Douglas Boulevard going to the west. You're not doing anything with that on-ramp at all?
That's a separate project.
So they are gonna fix that mess too?
Yes.
That's a SPUI, if I'm not correct.
Correct.
Or if I remember correctly, and it's programmed, is it?
Yes, sir, it is programmed. We also applied. Yes, sir, Mayor, it is programmed, and we also applied for an infra grant from Washington, and we hope to hear back shortly on the possibility of us receiving a grant to help advance that project. But yes, sir, it is a single point interchange, and as part of that project, it also includes the additional lanes out to 240.
I have another question, I'm sorry. This is beyond sort of our limits, but you mentioned that Section 1 starts basically where I-35 and I-40 interchange, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so just curious, because in bad weather, there's that hill and curve whenever you're coming off of I-35 and you're kind of banking to the left whenever you're headed to the east off of I-35 onto I-40. And inevitably, as soon as we get ice, someone crashes there or multiple people crash there. The same thing with that incline from underneath where you're already on I-40 west, but it's basically at that interchange point, and you've got that little hill there. Do y'all know what I'm talking about? Is this ringing a bell? And I say this because it is important to us too, because it's mostly, you know, our residents that are going through those areas, and then it delays traffic flow with people being able to get in and get out. Are those areas being affected by this project or no?
The interchange is not part of this project, but to answer your question on snow and ice is we recently received a brine maker, and we're going to be making our own brine at our Northwest 122nd facility, and we've got 3 trucks that we're looking at outfitting. So the idea with the brine is to pre-treat it's especially those flyovers, because they are the first to ice, that we take care of those issues maybe even 2 to 3 days in advance of a storm, and we do those things at night to stay out of traffic. So we are trying to use technology, and so this winter we will be experimenting with our brine applications, and certainly that'll be one location along with the Belle Isle that
yes, sir.
are our first bridges to ice over.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, you guys ready for the next one now?
Have we ever stopped you?
No, but I have to ask. I know you're not going to say no. Okay, you're getting rid of the move over to the Eaker Gate.
Eaker is town center.
Town center.
That's it.
Okay, you're getting rid of the entrance getting on the interstate there, which means you're going to throw everybody onto Air Depot.
Yes.
You've already said Air Depot's got too much traffic.
Yes.
So you're widening it to take care of a problem we already have, but you're increasing it by closing that gate, by doing that.
Yes.
So will it relieve the traffic and take that extra traffic from there?
It makes what you have that is bad now worse.
So why would
But
you
this
do
is
that?
an
Yeah.
option.
It's gonna make it worse, especially you look around
So why
Christmas.
would you give us a plan that's gonna take bad and make it worse?
Okay, as the reason why you're looking at this plan today is because it is closest to do nothing as we can present. And you can be able to, you can also evaluate the other options. It's what we always do when we present options. And that's what we're here to do, to show you the 3 different options. This is one of them. It's the closest to the do nothing that we have. And we always use do nothing as one of the options so you can can compare and see the improvements of the other options to see if they're worthy.
Okay, the other question I had was go down to Industrial Gate, down to the other end. Keep going. Okay, now you've gotten rid of the entrance there going east.
Correct.
Now, you're going to throw all of the 3001 Tinker traffic onto Douglas, onto the new Spewey. You really want to double the amount of traffic on Douglas going east?
In order to fit the ramps at Douglas Interchange, we had to eliminate those ramps. Today, that weave between those two ramps is less than 1,000 feet. It's even worse. So in order to get federal dollars, we have to meet their standards. So those ramps had to be eliminated to accommodate the new interchange at Douglas.
We have two more options.
Okay, that was my questions on this one.
So inevitably, when we go to a public meeting, the first question we're asked from the public is, can't you just improve the existing? So that's what our 2-1 is. How do we improve the existing?
By making the already existing issue worse.
Correct. So for alternative 2-2, we call this the button hook ramps. So similar to 2-1, we have additional through lanes on I-40. We have the auxiliary lanes that feed the ramps. But we see several ramp modifications. We have the introduction of a new loop ramp in the corner, or the southeast corner of Air Depot and Southeast 29th. The reason we introduced this loop ramp was to try to take traffic out of that intersection. So like our gentleman pointed out, we're making 2-1 makes that intersection worse. Now we're looking at how do we remove traffic from that intersection and make it better. And then we also included 2 button hook ramps that meet up with one of your main entrances into your shopping center, both as a I-40 westbound off-ramp and an I-40 eastbound on-ramp that feeds to a CD road that slip ramp will join before then merging into I-40 traffic. We also, hang on.
Since we're on that slide, you have got right in front of our airplanes from Air Depot up to Town Center Drive, you have got a frontage road.
Correct.
There is zero way to get an exit from 40 onto that frontage road?
No, we can add one there, and the next alternative has it there, but we can easily put it in this one as well.
But you can easily put it in this one, because the next alternative is the one that's got the frontage road going one direction only, right?
This is a frontage road on the,
Yeah,
going
I thought
just
29th
one
Street
way.
becomes a frontage road just
Yes,
going.
the
That's
other
a
one.
dead one. We probably shouldn't even talk about that one.
So if we take a tour of alternative 2-2. Sure. Can you turn off 2-1, Nick? You didn't turn off 2-1.
You just said 29th Street being a frontage road going one direction is not an option.
Okay, so here you'll see that we direct pause for just a second. We direct the frontage road going eastbound down Arthur Harris. It no longer connects to Southeast 29th, right adjacent to I-40. We have a new 2-lane ramp that peels off of I-40 and then uses a bridge that goes over Southeast 29th and then feeds to Air Depot. And then there's a bypass from the intersection to feed directly into Tinker, again, trying to take traffic out of these intersections. And then here you can see a close-up of the loop ramp. So traffic leaving Tinker, wanting to go westbound, would use that loop ramp to get on the CD road and then merge into I-40, again, taking traffic out of that Air Depot and Southeast 29th intersection.
Let me ask a question. So if you're leaving Tinker,
Mm-hmm.
as many people do early in the morning and hit up the Starbucks, how do you get to Southeast 29th? I mean, you just go straight ahead?
Yes.
It looks like that's closed off.
No, can you zoom in there a little bit, Nick? There is an option to go straight through on Air Depot past Southeast 29th or to turn right on Southeast 29th. It's hard to see. Nope. You still have all the options there. Sure. So continuing to the east.
So you can put a ramp from I-40 eastbound to intersect with that frontage road that is on the south side of the highway.
Correct.
So that the town center could be accessed from there.
Yes. It's in the next alternative, but it could easily be applied here. So here you have a better look at the button hook ramps. The reason you see so many lanes there is because we did do that traffic analysis, and that's what was needed to accommodate all the traffic that's coming to there and then we have a very long separated deceleration lane, again, to not back up traffic onto I-40.
So eastbound I-40 with that ramp could enter town center off of Town Center Drive, and westbound I-40 would enter off of Mid-America Boulevard.
Yes.
And it keeps 29th pretty well intact.
Yes, but the congestion you're seeing today, we are improving it some by adding that loop ramp to try to take some of that traffic out of there, but it's still going to get worse.
But your alternative to fix this is to make 29th Street a one-way street.
Because that,
And that is economically, that's an economic killer.
if well, can we talk about that when we get to that alternative?
Sure.
Okay. So if we continue to the east here, you can see the frontage road system on the south side of I-40 ends in a ramp that enters back onto I-40. And you can see here that Southeast 29th Street is pretty much left alone. And then the remainder of the project looks very similar to the first alternative you saw with the new industrial bridge and the bump out of Southeast 29th Street. And then again, we would have to eliminate the ramps on the east side of industrial because of the Spooey interchange at Douglas coming. So we go back to the PowerPoint, Nick, please. So the final alternative, alternative 2-3, turns a portion of Southeast 29th Street into a one-way system. Again, we have additional lanes on I-40, we have the auxiliary lanes, we have, go ahead to the next slide. We have the eastbound frontage road, but the intersection underneath Southeast 29th looks a lot different than today because we are trying to direct people to the frontage road on the south side versus going through, because once they hit Air Depot going east, they'll have to turn either left or right. With the Southeast 29th Street as one way and the frontage road on the other side is one way, we can utilize more slip ramps to give more points on and off the interstate. And then we can also use those protected turnarounds to help circulate traffic. Good. So let's take a look at that. So here at the beginning, you see those ramps on and off. And then we also, pause for just a second, Nick, sorry. We have introduced a new ramp for alternative 2-2 and 2-3 here going westbound just on the other side of the Southeast 29th Street Bridge. And that was to allow traffic an exit to get to Rose State. The intersection underneath the Southeast 29th Street, can you zoom in there a little closer, does look very unconventional. Again, we were trying to direct people more the flow to the frontage road. So people that wanted to continue through on Southeast 29th have to actually get in a left turn lane and make a left-hand turn. And then people on the frontage road have the opportunity to now circulate with a protected turnaround underneath the bridge and head back to the car dealerships or Rose State. So if you continue on then to the east, the blue there is the trail, possible trail reconnection. That was just one idea. Here you can see now, because we are because we're proposing to change Southeast 29th Street as one direction, we have now one less movement to deal with in the 29th Street intersection. So it takes more traffic than the previous alternative out of that intersection.
In a city that can develop on both sides of a highway, this works a lot more optimally than a city that only can develop on one. And when you take 29th Street and turn it one way, when we only have one half because of the base that we have economic development on, you're cutting our throats.
Our traffic models show that the traffic moves more efficiently this way, and with the protected turnarounds, traffic moves better through this.
I get that, but you're going to take away a lot of our shoppers by putting them on opposite sides of the other. We have one side of I-40 that's developed because we have the base on the other. And your models are 100% correct that your traffic will go a lot more efficiently. But the tax dollars are what's going to pay for this.
Well, but I think the emphasis is on the word that you spoke, which is through. The traffic moves more efficiently through. And in my mind, it is through and on by type of thing. Because again, it's an awful lot like the IT-40 development, except there, to echo Sean's point, you can develop on the north and south side of the road, so you have access on the north and south. But inevitably, you've got businesses in between, and if you miss them, you go on down, and sometimes you just go, never mind, I give up, and go on by. That is what I think everybody's concern in this horseshoe is about 29th. If you cut it to one lane, it's going to kill us.
Can we
in that
show
regard.
you all the
And
access?
we have so much traffic currently that's on 29th Street that is local traffic.
Let me just,
I mean,
one of the things that you said to me earlier, is we're partners in this and we want to get your input and everything else like that. So let's just get to the chase. If you want to continue to present this, that's fine, but if you truly want our input and you do this option, you truly didn't care what we said tonight.
Can we finish explaining this option first?
If you feel the need to.
So here you can see that ramp that you asked for on the going eastbound after Air Depot. There's another ramp that exit off I-40 that will allow traffic to have more direct route to town center. Continue on. We also added a ramp for Tinker traffic heading westbound. There will be a bridge over the detention pond because we understand from you guys that's where all the runoff water from this shopping center goes to, so we cannot affect that detention pond. So we would bridge over it, and then that traffic would then go up to the Air Depot intersection and be forced to turn left from that ramp. Then if we continue on to the east, if you continue east, then you see that at Town Center, we've added those protected turnarounds. So traffic will now be able to circulate from one side to the other side without going through a signal. And then if we continue on to the east, here we've been able to add an additional off-ramp to replace, on-ramp to replace the one at Town Center, and then the on-ramp in both directions. Here we are showing it pushing up slightly to the north. That was just to show an alternative that did not affect Tinker as much. We have since learned from Tinker that the water towers are not of a concern to them, or that building there as well is not as big a concern to them, so we wouldn't necessarily have to push up to the north. We were just using this as another option. And then if we continue to the east, you'll see here a new exit ramp that will funnel traffic onto Southeast 29th Street at the beginning of the shopping center. And then this bridge is one of the bridges that we've been discussing with Tinker that they're not real happy about, so we're looking at alternatives for that bridge as well, and maybe continuing the frontage roads on to the east to Industrial.
Well, it appears to me that you kind of Tinker's the main player in this, and learned from Tinker that they're not concerned about the water towers and they're concerned about that bridge. I'm going to echo Sean's. We don't have to worry about that detention pond because we won't need a bridge over the detention pond because the shopping mall won't be there if we do this. It'll shut down because the people on there's a lot of local people that go to that shopping mall on 29th Street, and they're not going to go if they have to get up on the interstate. They stay off the interstate because of the traffic, and you're going to force the people that are trying to go west out of that area to get back up on the interstate, and they just won't shop there.
And let me just jump in here on Pat's comment, because here's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing the concerns about this proposal has been addressed to address Tinker's concern. It's been addressed to address Rose State's concern. And my guess is it's been addressed to David Stanley's concern about everything that is moving in at Midwest Boulevard.
Hudeberg.
I'm sorry?
Hudeberg, right?
Sorry, my apologies. Thank you. But I'm not seeing how any of this plan assists in protecting town center. I just don't see it. I mean, it's going, yes, the idea is to move traffic efficiently down I-40 and move it through, but it is going to move it through right on by. And the bridge, I mean, I kind of have a different comment to Pat's, but that bridge over the detention pond, that detention pond does serve, next to the Welcome Center, a recreational purpose for a lot of folks. There are kids that go out there and fish. There are families that go out there and fish. And you have your hand up.
I think we can come to a
anybody here that thinks that
consensus
this
that-
option is a good option? Because if we do, we should address it. If we don't, let's go back and talk about the
I
other
think
options.
it's a consensus that this option is a no-go for the city of Midwest City.
Yeah, if you would, please put that in writing, and we'd very much appreciate it. Let
What
us,
That's no
font and
problem.
how much
We're
space
gonna
do you
need-
want in between each sentence?
what we would like to know is we would like to know what your priorities are, because there are give and
Well-
takes. So if you would let us know what is most important. And in this process, when we go through and present one-way and two-way frontage roads, there's a lot more options available to the city with one-way. And I want to say that if you're truly interested in protecting and preserving your shopping center, that the one-way option does the best job 10 years
So can you show
from
us
now.
any kind of numbers where a city just has one side of an interstate to develop on, and when a situation like your option 2.3 that we don't like was implemented, it actually increased spending in that city?
Show us what you would like,
No,
and we will be more
that's
than
what I would
happy.
like.
Show us what you
Time
would
out,
like, and
time
we
out.
would be more than
Brian.
happy to come back and try to address
So the question that I asked
it.
is, 2.3 is your favorite because it moves stuff faster. You just said it gives more on and off ramps, which will help shopping. So can you show us any city that has one side of a highway that they can develop where this is changed to your best option and the economic impact has been positive for that city?
The one-way frontage road works when the opposite side is one-way frontage road also, to allow the Texas turnaround to take place.
But does it work in a city that only has one side of an
Yeah, absolutely. We would not have
So you can show us
presented.
those numbers.
Yeah, we absolutely have traffic numbers that we
I'm
use
not
to
talking about
generate.
traffic numbers, I'm talking about
Economic impact.
No,
development in a city.
I don't know if that is available to me. If it is, I will be more than happy to. What
I
I need.
don't really need to see any
Yeah.
numbers. All
Yes,
I
sir.
know is that if we disrupt traffic on Southeast 29th for the length of time that it's going to take this project off the ground, we will die on the vine. I don't really need to see numbers. It's rather obvious. So our best two options are 1 and 2. This is going to disrupt so much dirt and so much traffic for so long that our economic driver that provides a good portion of our sales tax revenue will die.
Well, message received.
Just scheduled to happen.
That was, I was going to speak to that.
Yeah.
None of this is in the 8-year construction work plan. So What is in the plan right now is Douglas, Sooner, Crutcho, 15th, and Scott Street. None of this is in the 8-year construction work plan. We're very early in the process. We're out front, and that's what we're here for, to get your input. These were proposals. These are nothing. Our final product may not resemble this, but we're here to, we wanted to get your input. We wanted to let you know that there are other options available. And we're always going to work with the city, and we're going to take your comments, and we're going to go back, and we're going to improve upon what we had.
Well, DOT will have a letter with my name on it tomorrow.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Best guess scenario, how long?
I will give you a best guess because a lot of economic development depends upon it. It is not in the 8-year construction work plan, but my best guess would be in the next 10 to 20 years.
And see, one reason I'm a little gun shy about it is that we just went through a DOT project on Southeast 15th Street that was supposed to have been done in a certain amount of time, and it almost doubled, and it almost killed several small businesses over there. And yet they're nothing to this extent. And so if we sound like we're just a little bit concerned, that's wrong. We're major concerned.
Yes, sir. I want to
there's
let you
really
know I'm
no,
available anytime you need me.
You bet.
Yes, sir.
Is there any further, thank you for your presentation. It's very professionally done. We appreciate that, and we appreciate the input. Obviously, we've got several economic drivers in place. We've got Rose State we got to think about, and our biggest economic driver is along 29th Street. Any disruption, prolonged disruption of traffic through that area will have a dramatic effect on our ability to operate as a city. So that's the things that we keep in mind. I understand there's a lot of engineering ideas and things out there that could probably improve traffic flow. But the bottom line is the bottom line, and that is our ability to operate as a city. So we do appreciate our ability to input. Rose State has already sent some of their concerns to you, as I recall, or as I've been reminded. And we will voice our concerns as well. And we understand you guys have a big job, and you're kind of like code enforcement. Anything you do is going to be wrong, but we're trying to minimize the impact on our community and work with you as well. So thank you guys for being here and entertaining our comments. And collectively, I think we've probably shot down at least one.
I just have one quick comment also, or concern. I had a sticker, and I apologize, but when you were making the comment about some of the bridges within this project span are at the end of their useful life, I was noticing tonight as I was driving under I-40 at Center Road that the south side of that, the rebar is exposed on that bridge.
That's pretty typical of bridges that old. Unfortunately, we have quite a few of them along this corridor, and that also is a result of our salt applications over the years. We had a salt yard on Reno, so obviously all the bridges near El Reno got an extra dose.
Well, and so my question is, I mean, your comment about, kind of this project is predicted in a 10 to 20 year span. The bridges like that, I mean, are they due to get any?
Sooner is scheduled to be replaced. Air Depot is not within the 8-year construction work plan. There are several locations through there that we don't have solutions. We were waiting on making a determination on how do we get these additional lanes through, and how do we reconnect the areas and meet today's standards. So there was a lot of decisions. That's why we're early in the process. We're going to come back, and we're going to come back with better ideas to present them. Take your information, come back with better ideas, and we're ways away from deciding what we need to do. But we're going to take your comments, go back and do as good a job as we can, and we'll be back, and we'll run it past you one more time. But it's a tough job to reconnect everybody the same way that they were reconnected before. It's impossible, with the new requirements, so change has got to occur, and change is difficult. And I'm the guy bringing it up to you for the first time. But we're going to take the information and do our very best, and we'll be back.
Thank you, Brian. Thank all of you
Yes,
for
sir.
being here. We appreciate it. With that being said, moving on to our agenda, we move into, there's no action needed on that particular item, so we move into our new business public discussion. Does anyone have anything to bring before the council? Hearing none. Gwen, really?
Before these guys leave, I need to bring up something that's been brought up every
Can you caucus with them over there?
I can. I can.
Would you please?
Yeah, I would.
Thank you, Mr. Lowslacker. I appreciate it. With that being said, no further discussion. We hereby adjourn. I call to order the Midwest City Municipal Authority agenda. We have a consent agenda. The
No.
executive session's gone away. We don't need to do that. We do have a consent agenda. These items placed on the consent agenda so that the trustees, by unanimous consent, can approve routine agenda items by one motion. If any item proposed does not meet with approval of all trustees or members of the audience which to discuss an item been removed and heard in regular order, the chair would entertain a motion. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. New business public discussion. Does anyone have anything to bring before the municipal authority? Hearing none, we are hereby adjourned. I call to order the Midwest City Memorial Hospital Authority. We do have a consent agenda. These items are placed on the consent agenda so the trustees, by unanimous consent, can approve routine agenda items by one motion. If any item proposed does not meet with the approval of all trustees or members of the audience which to discuss an item, be heard and removed in a regular order. Chair would entertain a motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. We do have one discussion item.
This is discussion consideration of action to reallocate assets, change fund managers, or make changes in the statement of investment policy guidelines and objectives. No action is necessary on this.
No action necessary. We move into public discussion. Anyone have anything to bring before the authority? Hearing none, we are hereby adjourned.
Well, no, Mayor, I would suggest that we recess at this point and then go into the economic development agenda.
We do need that.
All in favor?
Stand by.
So we had a motion
In a second.
and a
We have a
second.
motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? We're hereby recessed, and I call to order the Midwest City Economic Development Commission. We do have a consent agenda. Chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. New business public discussion. Anyone have anything to bring before the Economic Development Commission? Hearing none, we're hereby adjourned. Reconvene.
No, we do Utilities Authority.
Utilities. Really? Call to order the Midwest City Utilities Authority.
You're earning your money today.
Yes, I am. We do have a consent agenda. These items are placed on consent agenda, so trustees of the Midwest City Utilities Authority can, by unanimous consent, approve routine agenda items. If any item does not meet with the approval of all trustees or the members of the audience which discuss an item, be heard and removed and heard in regular order.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? New business public discussion. Anybody have anything to bring before the Utility Authority? Hearing none, we are hereby adjourned, and we will reconvene. Authority, Midwest City Hospital Authority. And I need a motion to go to executive session. Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. We are hereby in executive session. Going upstairs.